Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: powerful Home Affairs boss Mike Pezzullo dumped after investigation into backchannel lobbying. Government rushes to patch up laws for stripping terrorists of citizenship. Why pairing border security with aid for Ukraine makes a deal with Republicans so tough. Home Affairs Secretary Michael Pezzullo sacked. Sunak agreed to raise migrant salary threshold in Braverman deal. Powerful Home Affairs boss Mike Pezzullo dumped after investigation into backchannel lobbying. ABC. Mike Pezzullo, the head of the Home Affairs Department in Australia, has been removed from his position following leaked text conversations that revealed his attempts to influence government policy. Pezzullo allegedly used a political backchannel to influence prime ministers and undermine others, leading to an investigation by the Australian Public Service Commission. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese terminated Pezzullo's appointment based on a recommendation from the Secretary of the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet and the Australian Public Service Commissioner. The leaked texts reportedly show Pezzullo agitating for a right-winger to be appointed as Home Affairs Minister and specifically advocating for Peter Dutton to be given the portfolio. The text messages have not been independently verified by the ABC. Government rushes to patch up laws for stripping terrorists of citizenship. ABC. The Australian government is rushing new legislation through Parliament that would give judges the power to strip terrorists of their citizenship. The move comes in response to recent High Court rulings that found the power to strip citizenship should be imposed by a judge, not a minister. The legislation would apply to a broader range of people, including those involved in foreign interference and espionage, and would be retrospective from 2015 onwards. The minister would apply to a court to consider citizenship cessation based on a list of criteria outlined in the bill. The legislation is being introduced to address the legal issues raised by the High Court rulings and strengthen Australia's anti-terror regime. Why pairing border security with aid for Ukraine makes a deal with Republicans so tough. The Globe and Mail. Republicans in both chambers of Congress have made clear that they will not support additional aid for Ukraine unless it is paired with border security measures to help manage the influx of migrants at the US-Mexico border. Their demand has injected one of the most contentious issues in American politics into a foreign policy debate that was already difficult. Time is short for a deal. A small, bipartisan group in the Senate is taking the lead and working to find a narrow compromise that can overcome a likely filibuster by winning 60 votes. But even if they can reach a modest agreement, there is no guarantee it would pass the House, where Republicans are insisting on wholesale changes to U.S. border and immigration policies. What Biden is asking for. Biden's emergency request to Congress included aid for Ukraine, Israel, and other U.S. allies, along with $14 billion to bolster the immigration system and border security. Money would go toward hiring more Border Patrol agents, immigration judges, and asylum officers. Home Affairs Secretary Michael Pezzullo sacked. The Sydney Morning Herald. Michael Pezzullo, the former Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs in Australia, has been fired due to covert dealings with lobbyists and secret attempts to gain political influence. Pezzullo had been on leave since September while an investigation was conducted into his dealings with Liberal Party power broker Scott Briggs. The investigation found that Pezzullo had breached the Public Service Code of Conduct and had used Briggs as a political back channel to undermine enemies and promote allies. Pezzullo had been in his role since 2014 and was instrumental in the creation of the Super Department of Home Affairs in 2017. Sunak agreed to raise migrant salary threshold in Braverman deal. The Independent. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak reportedly agreed to increase the salary threshold for migrant workers to £40,000 as part of a leadership contest deal with Sala Braverman. The deal, which was allegedly agreed upon verbally and not signed, also included a commitment to reduce net migration and prioritize Russell Group University applicants in visa applications. The claims come as the Prime Minister faces pressure from MPs to bring down net migration, which reached record levels in 2022. Braverman, who was replaced as Home Secretary by James Cleverly, accused Sunak of breaking promises in a scathing letter after her sacking. Not all migrants are good for Britain. We should only let in the ones who are. Telegraph. The profile of immigration to the UK matters as much as the numbers, argues Matthew Goodwin in The Times. While advocates of mass immigration often argue that it brings unalloyed benefits, the reality is more complex. Immigration may increase the size of the economy, but it does not necessarily increase prosperity on a per capita basis. In fact, low-paid migrant workers can discourage training of local workers and investment in labor-saving technology. Furthermore, the idea that immigration can fix demographics is a myth. Goodwin suggests that the post-Brexit points-based system is not as selective as it claims to be, with migrants being able to come to the UK on skilled worker visas for low salaries. The immigration system also allows the automatic right for foreign students to stay and work in the UK after study, with several universities establishing satellite campuses to attract international students. Goodwin argues that selective immigration is needed for both economic and social reasons, as the profile of immigration affects factors such as public spending, social integration, and cultural attitudes. Malaysia to allow visa-free entry to Chinese, Indian citizens. Bloomberg. Malaysia will eliminate entry visa requirements for Chinese and Indian citizens starting from December 1. Chinese and Indian nationals will be able to stay in Malaysia for up to 30 days without a visa, subject to security screening. Malaysia hopes that this move will attract more tourists and boost economic growth. China has also recently announced that it will allow citizens from 6 countries, including Malaysia, to enter China without a visa for up to 15 days. Labour says it will aim to cut annual net migration to under 200,000. Telegraph. The UK Labour Party would seek to limit annual net migration to 200,000 if it came to power, according to Darren Jones, the shadow chief secretary to the Treasury. Net migration to the UK reached a record 745,000 in 2022, largely due to an influx of health and social care workers. Jones said that the normal level of net migration should be a couple of 100,000 a year, but would depend on the needs of the economy. Labour's Yvette Cooper also proposed increasing the salary threshold for foreign workers and abolishing the 20% discount for roles on the shortage occupation list. Tommy Robinson escorted from march against anti-Semitism as man arrested. The Independent. Tens of thousands of people attended a march against anti-Semitism in London over the weekend, organised by Charity Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and celebrities including Tracy Ann Oberman and Rachel Riley joined the gathering, which was also attended by English Defence League founder Tommy Robinson. The Metropolitan Police arrested Robinson after he refused to leave the area when warned that his presence could cause alarm and distress. The march was organized due to concerns about rising tensions sparked by the conflict in Gaza. Senators' top target in border talks, tighter asylum rules for migrants. Wall Street Journal. The Senate could agree on a bipartisan border deal in order to secure funding for Ukraine. Republicans have demanded stricter asylum rules at the US-Mexico border in return for supporting President Biden's request for emergency funding for Ukraine. Democrats have conceded that changes to border policy will likely be part of the deal. The current standard for asylum claims is deemed to be credible fear of persecution in their home country, which is seen as any chance above 10%. Republicans are requesting that this bar be raised and that more evidence be required from migrants. It is unclear whether this change will be enough for Republicans to agree on a deal, or whether more liberal Democrats will support any compromise. Other ideas under consideration include expanding mandatory detention for single adults and reintroducing a form of remain in Mexico. Lawmakers and aides involved in the negotiations have warned that reaching an agreement will be difficult and that any deal must be completed by December if it is to have a chance of passing. How asylum seekers pay to cross Russian-Finnish border. Deutsche Welle. Finland has closed all border crossings with Russia, with the exception of one in the northeast of the country. Finnish President Sauli Niinistö has described the increase in migrants entering Finland from Russia as the Kremlin's revenge for his country's decision to join NATO. Russia says that those crossing the borders have the right to do so. Since August, 684 people from Yemen, Iraq, Somalia and other African and Middle Eastern countries have sought asylum in Finland without the correct paperwork to enter the European Union. Law enforcement agencies get $255 million funding boost after High Court decision. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian government is set to increase the number of staff working for the Australian Border Force and Home Affairs Department as part of a $255 million funding injection. The funding boost is designed to limit risks to community safety from the release of people previously held indefinitely in immigration detention. The move follows a recent landmark decision by the High Court ruling that indefinite immigration detention is unconstitutional, even if detainees have serious criminal records. No split between Cleverly and Sunak on Rwanda, says Minister. The Independent. Chief Secretary to the Treasury Laura Trott has denied suggestions of a split between Chancellor Rishi Sunak and Conservative Party Chairman James Cleverly over the Rwanda asylum plan. Cleverly had downplayed the significance of the plan, stating that it was not the be-all and end-all of stopping channel crossings, while Sunak stressed the importance of the scheme. Trott insisted that both politicians were saying the same thing, stating that Rwanda is part of the plan but not the entirety of it. The Supreme Court ruled earlier this month that the plan was unlawful. $10,000 to import a builder, new call on Canberra to ease house price pressure. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian building industry has called on the government to provide subsidies to builders who bring in skilled foreign workers, in an effort to reduce the cost of new homes. The industry has warned that it will need 480,000 new workers over the next 3 years to meet growing demand and replace older tradespeople as they retire. The proposal is controversial given the high level of migration and the government's plans to reduce the intake. Industry groups argue that a lack of workers is leading to higher labor costs and delays in construction timelines. Malaysia should work with Australia to extradite killer, jailed ex-PM. The Sydney Morning Herald. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak has called on the authorities in Australia to extradite convicted hitman Cyril Azza Umar, who fled to the country in 2015 after being sentenced to death for the murder of Mongolian model Altantia Sharibu in 2006. Najib's lawyer has suggested that Umar should be extradited to Malaysia, and that the government could offer assurances that he would not be executed. Malaysia has a moratorium on the death penalty and has not executed anyone since 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, I bring you a mix of news from around the globe. Let's dive right into it. In Australia, Mike Pezzullo, the head of the Home Affairs Department, has been removed from his position after leaked text conversations revealed his attempts to influence government policy. It's like he was trying to play a real-life game of spy versus spy. But alas, his backchannel lobbying has led to his downfall. Speaking of Australia, the government is rushing new legislation through Parliament to give judges the power to strip terrorists of their citizenship. They want to make sure those terrorists don't get any fancy benefits like citizenship while they're busy causing chaos. It's like they're saying, if you're going to terrorize us, at least do it as a foreigner. Now, let's hop over to the United States, where Republicans are playing hardball with aid for Ukraine. They're saying, sure, we'll help Ukraine, but only if you do something about those migrants at the US-Mexico border. It's like they're trying to bundle up their demands like a Black Friday deal. Buy one aid package, get one border security measure for free. In the UK, the drama continues. Apparently, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak made a deal with Sala Braverman during a leadership contest. They allegedly agreed to raise the salary threshold for migrant workers and prioritize applicants from Russell Group universities. It's like they were trying to make their own immigration version of The Price is Right. Who wants to come to the UK? Higher salaries? Come on down. But not everyone is happy with the UK's immigration system. Matthew Goodwin argues that the profile of immigration matters just as much as the numbers. He says that low-paid migrant workers can discourage training of local workers and investment in technology. It's like he's saying, we don't want just any immigrants, we want the best and the brightest. Give us the Einsteins, not the Wile-E. Coyotes. Moving on to Malaysia, they're opening their doors to Chinese and Indian tourists by eliminating entry visa requirements. It's like they're throwing open their arms and saying, come on in, we've got beaches, food, and cultural wonders waiting for you. Meanwhile, China is also loosening its visa requirements, allowing citizens from 6 countries, including Malaysia, to enter without a visa. It's like they're saying, let's make the world a visa-free zone. Back in the UK, the Labour Party has set its sights on cutting annual net migration to under 200,000. They're saying, enough is enough, we need to bring those numbers down. It's like they're trying to put a cap on migration like a well-fitted hat. And finally, we have a mix of news from Finland, Australia, and the UK. Finland has closed most of its border crossings with Russia due to an increase in migrants entering the country. It's like they're saying, sorry, we're full, go find another border to cross. Meanwhile, the Australian government is increasing funding for law enforcement agencies to address the risks posed by released immigration detainees. It's like they're saying, we've got to keep an eye on those ex-detainees, they could be up to no good. And in the UK, there's talk of providing subsidies to builders who bring in skilled foreign workers to reduce the cost of new homes. It's like they're saying, we need more builders, and we're willing to pay for them. Well, that's all the news I have for you today. Remember, folks, the world is a wild and wacky place, and it's important to stay informed and keep a sense of humor. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of these news stories? Do you have any ideas or opinions? Let's discuss. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.